Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Networking with Nathaniel. This is episode 22. Wow, we're cooking right along here. Um, I am pleased to be joined here with Chris Wheatley, a husband, a father of two beautiful girls, 6 and 2. He's a full-time engineer doing some cool stuff with renewable energy. Been doing that for a little while now. We've been talking off camera for a bit. And he's a part of the Gator tribe for about 6 months or so now. Summer of 2023, he joined and he's learning a lot of stuff and has some cool things to share with us along the way here. Thanks for joining me, man. How are you doing today?
I'm great, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I know we had a conflict last week, I think it was, but we readjusted and now we're here to share our stories together. Um,
Yeah.
Tell me, I know you're a full-time engineer.
hmm
Tell me a little bit about that, like what you do there and what kind of keeps you going on a daily basis.
Yeah, sure. So I have a background in renewable energy engineering. So that could involve anything from, solar energy, wind power, hydro, and also building efficiency. So commercial buildings. That's generally in the HVAC and lighting space. Those are typically the biggest energy users there.
Okay.
But yeah, I've been in that industry for about 6 years. I go into, or have been going into large buildings like hospitals, university buildings, data centers, that sort of thing. And I help them not only find ways for them to save energy, but then also help them get those projects implemented. So,
Okay.
accessing dollars through, rebate programs with utilities,
Mm.
lenders, that sort of thing. And part of that work is also some coaching. So
Okay.
coaching their executive teams to view energy management in sort of a strategic way. In fact, it's often referred to throughout the country as strategic energy management. So getting companies that, their primary business focus might not be energy in any single way, but it needs to be a core focus, much like safety would be. It's not
Mm.
how they're making money, but it's something that they should consider on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
the experience in that industry kind of led me more into the software world, and it's actually over the last, 4 or 5 months, I've really been focused on software development.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you say you're going and looking at these buildings, the
hmm
hospitals and the schools and stuff like that, I know you're in Denver, correct?
Yep.
Are these all local to Denver, or are you kind of doing this nationwide?
My work specifically has been in the Denver area.
Okay.
Our company that I work for is, we'll do work all over the country, even all over the world.
Mm.
But yeah, it's been mostly hospitals and universities in kind of the Denver area, performance arts centers, any data centers, any number of facilities that are large energy users, basically.
Yeah, interesting. And I know you have a eclectic, for lack of a better word, background
Yeah.
outside of that. What kind of has led you to this point? Because I think you mentioned oh shoot, I'm drawing a blank here on the other
Yeah, it's all good.
performance art as your
Yeah.
your initial bachelor's degree. So
Yeah, exactly. So I'm the odd duck that went from artist to engineer. I have a
mm,
degree in theater and film from the University of Kansas. I graduated some time ago. I won't say the year, so I won't date
yeah.
myself. But after that experience, I worked in the television, film, and theater industry, doing everything from production work, special effects, pyrotechnics, stage combat, directing, acting. Really loved the work itself, but I worked in that industry basically long enough to realize I had no interest in an actual career.
Mm,
Um, Mostly because there's a ton of stuff you have to do so that you get to do the thing that you want to.
yeah.
And I did not have enough passion to overcome the 80% of activities that are not that much fun
Mm,
to do the 20% that is a blast.
yeah, interesting.
Uh, yeah, so I left that industry while living in Los Angeles. I'd met my who would become my future wife and started working for a research center at USC. So I was a
Okay.
business budget analyst, working in spreadsheets. Might be a bit surprising going from acting to spreadsheets, but I've always had I guess, a love of Excel, you could
Yeah.
say. And actually, before I started in theater, I was an architectural engineering major. So I went from
Okay.
architectural engineering to theater,
Yeah.
worked in that industry, got out of it, got into finance, and thought, gosh, I want to contribute to the world in some way. I'm not sure I want to go on this sort of business analyst path at, higher education. What could be next for me?
Mm.
And so my wife and I took a trip abroad, and we did some trekking through the mountains, and I saw a ton of solar water heaters, basically, solar panels,
Yeah.
thermal water heaters on the roof that were providing hot water to folks.
Mm.
I thought, gosh, renewable energy has always been something I've been interested in. It's been sort of a pet hobby, just researching and, keeping up on technology. I wonder if there's anything like a renewable energy engineering degree. So I did some
Sure enough.
research. Sure enough,
Yeah.
there was a program in Oregon. So my wife, God bless her, was willing to uproot
Wow.
and moved to Oregon, and we lived there. And we lived there for about 6 years. I got my degree and started an industry there, and now we're in Colorado doing the same
Yeah.
thing.
Wow. That's amazing. It's an uncharted journey, I guess. It's not a
Yeah,
definitely not a usual the usual typical kind of journey to get to an engineering bachelor's degree and job like you're doing. But
yep.
hey, we all have our own path that we got to chart and go on and find ourselves, and it's pretty incredible. I'm interested to know how you ended up coming upon the Gator tribe, the Gator
Mhm.
community, and what ultimately gets you in there. And
Yeah,
then from there we could talk about, what you got going on, what you're doing, and what
sure.
2024 kind of holds.
Yeah, so um, I have never been one to be bored. Boredom is death is
Mm.
kind of a phrase I like to say.
Yeah.
So I've always got a lot going on. A couple of years ago, and I won't go kind of too far down this path, but um, I started learning about other opportunity, other ways to make money, other ways of, sort of fleshing out one's financial life. I'll put it that way. And I stumbled across the infinite banking concept.
Mm.
And I became instantly enthralled, almost obsessed, you could say, with the infinite banking concept and the work that Nelson Nash started long, long ago.
Okay.
I started working with a couple of guys through a company called Unlimited Life Concepts, Nate Dean and Brandon Goswick, two incredible people. And because I was so obsessed with IBC and so taken with who they were or are as people and the way that they were trying to serve their clients, I basically said, look, guys, I want to help you. I want to be a part of what you're trying to build here. Here are all the skills that I have to offer. I have a lot of things that I can do with business system integration, web development, technology. If there's any way I can be of service, just let me know. No pressure. And then I kept bugging them.
Mm.
And then I kept bugging them and bugging them and bugging them until finally they're like, all right, all right, all right. Here's some stuff we need some help with. And that was almost 3 years ago, and we've been working together ever since.
Wow.
Brand.
I was really hoping you were going to say they needed an actor that could edit, and you're like, "Ah, it's all come to fruition."
Yeah, exactly. You know what's funny, Nathaniel? So my wife and I have been together now for 13 years, married for 10. She has never seen me act in anything,
Yeah.
not a single thing. So it's funny how life takes its twists and turns.
Yeah.
But so Brandon is a sub two student.
Okay.
He and his brother have been in sub two for a couple of years now. And I don't know, I think we were on a Voxer. We were just chatting back and forth, basically. And something came up about, his work in real estate. And I mentioned, gosh, real estate's been something I've been interested in. I don't know how to get involved. You know, I don't have a whole lot of capital to throw at it right now, but definitely want to start my real estate journey at some point. And he's like, oh man, well, I'm really digging this sub two coursework, and Pace Morby's work is really phenomenal. And I said, I'm sorry, you say Pace Morby? I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
He's like, dude,
You got
go, yeah, go Google Pace Morby, watch some of his YouTube videos. I think you're going to really dig his message. How he, tries to be of service to folks, and, all that he has to offer. And so, like probably many folks, I watched some YouTube videos. I got on some list somehow
Yeah.
and was pinged for a webinar on Gator. Hey, here's another opportunity for you to get involved in the real estate game.
Mm.
Come join us on a Saturday morning. You'll learn all about the Gator method. So I joined the webinar and, after kind of going through that process, immediately signed up for the Gator Tribe, and here I am.
Yeah.
So that's how I stumbled into the Gator community. But I've been so impressed with every Gator, every sub 2 student, every sort of person within this community that Pace has built. They're just, I don't know, they seem to embody that kind of go-giver spirit,
Yeah.
and it's been a lot of fun so far.
I totally agree. I think that, of course, there are outliers that are coming in just to market their services or whatever,
Mhm.
but for the most part, man, most of the people that you run across are just like, congrats for making your first phone call, even though it was terrifying and, maybe you feel like you did terrible, but good job for getting out there, just it's just a lot of love and a lot of we can do this together and what is it? Collaboration over competition.
Yep,
That was a tough one.
exactly. Yeah, you got through it though.
Yeah. So you've been in Gator for let's call it 6 months now, just for
Yeah.
ease of purposes.
Yep.
Have you done any lending at this point?
I haven't.
Uh,
So, the first kind of few months, so I think I joined in July, maybe end of July.
okay.
Started going through the coursework, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get through the coursework and just start learning. And then after a couple of videos, I realized I was just basically laying in bed at night after my day job, after all of my side businesses, laying in bed watching Pace's videos. And I quickly realized after a couple of weeks of doing that, I'm like, this is going to take me a while. There's a ton of content, which is, I think, um, speaks a lot to, kind of the resources that Pace provides as community. It's not just like, oh, here's 5 videos and then go figure it
Right.
out. It's like,
Yeah.
here is a mountain, an ocean of content that you can consume, and ways in which you can get involved. So after a couple of months, I realized I'm not making any progress because I'm not taking action. I'm
Mm.
just kind of sitting back, consuming content. I was not involved on Facebook. I was not networking with anybody. I was not, actively trying to provide value to anyone. And so I just have been focused the last few months on shifting that, reaching out, networking with folks, trying to start a podcast, going through the kind of the project forward process,
Okay.
looking to provide out value to others while I build corporate credit. And actually just yesterday I had my last call with PCS, and applied for a credit line. So I've now got some capital to throw at lending.
Nice.
So I'm really excited about that.
All right.
But I've not yet done a deal. So I'm excited to do my first one.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. I mean, it's amazing. Some people come in and do a deal on their first day,
Yep.
and other people it takes a year to do their first deal, but then the floodgates just open because they've spent a year building up, this muscle of deal finding or whatever your path is. And like you're saying with the Gator, the all the content that you have, and I'm not a part of the Gator community, but I can just
Mhm.
imagine compared to, with the sub two, like there's probably more stuff coming in all the time, and you're just like,
Yeah.
okay, I haven't even caught up to this stuff yet. I can't keep up. Uh,
Exactly.
so you're spending a lot of time on Facebook these days, networking, kind of scrolling
Mhm.
through the feed and seeing who's got deals that they need lending on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just, commenting on posts, trying to provide value, whether it's
Yeah.
resources, when Pace, as an example, when Pace first introduced the idea of bringing the infinite banking concept into sub 2 and Gator,
Yeah.
and invited Brent Kessler to do some presentations, and folks were asking questions, and where do I go next? Just trying to be a resource there because of my passion and expertise in that
Yeah.
area. Folks have questions about CRMs or how to set up their website, or whatever it is. Just trying to be responsive and provide value in any way that I can with my experience and skills that I have. And then, getting on networking calls like this podcast, this wonderful opportunity to connect with another human, and asking the question, how can I be of service to you? How can I provide value? What do you need? So that's really been my focus.
Yeah, and I love that you're taking your skills, your experience and your background and being able to apply it to just being able to help people. I, even if you're 20 years old and you're just getting started, you still have some skill, you have time, or you have drive or something like that. You're able to come in and just give some value to people. Um, we don't give ourselves enough credit for that, for
Mhm.
sure. Even though you've never done a deal before, and I'm not talking about you specifically, but the
Right.
proverbial
Yeah.
I've never done a
Sure,
deal
sure.
before, I've never made a call before.
Right.
There's something that you can do that's going to help somebody else out. And so I love that you're doing that. You're taking your skills that you have, you're tech savvy clearly,
Mhm.
and being able to help out somebody like myself who maybe my skills are being on the phone talking to people. And it's not that I can't do the tech stuff. It's just most of the time I don't want to do it. I'd
You don't
rather be
want
on the
to.
phone talking to people,
Yeah.
So I don't want to take too much time. But I am interested about the infinite banking system, or
Yep.
you said you called it IBC. What's the C?
Concept. The
Okay,
infinite
infinite
banking
banking
concept.
concept. Okay.
Yep.
Can you do like a minute, fifth grade level, like explanation of what it is?
Sure, sure. So there's a few different ways to talk about it, but let's just take the word infinite banking concept. So infinite,
Yeah.
like that means without limit. There are infinite possibilities. Nelson often talked about how the only limit to the infinite banking concept was your imagination.
Mhm.
So we'll take that as kind of the first part. Banking. Okay, well, what is banking? Well, there are a number of ways we could think about that. So obviously, the first thing to come to mind is something like, oh, U.S. Bank or Wells Fargo or something like that. There's the banking institution. And what service does banking provide? Well, it's kind of the flow of capital, right? It's deposits, withdrawals, payments, receipts, all of that sort of thing. So there's a function that's provided by banking. Another way to think about it is the bank of a river or a snowbank.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so what is a snowbank? Well, it's an accumulation of something. In that case, it's an accumulation of snow, right? So you can think of it as a function, both a function and the accumulation of capital. And capital is something that is different from money in the sense that money is kind of the medium of exchange, right? We use dollars, we use yen, we use pesos, like whatever it is. The money is the medium of exchange, but capital is something that's very different. Concept is really implying that it's a process, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of going about something, as opposed to it necessarily being an object, an item, a product.
Mm.
So those are three things that I would highlight about IBC that I think really speaks to um, what differentiates what Nelson was trying to teach and communicate in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker, which is something I always point people back to. Like if you're interested in the infinite banking concept, go read Becoming Your Own Banker. It is the best first place to start.
Okay.
Okay. So Wheatley, you said a lot, but you didn't really say anything about IBC. You just described a couple of words. It's like, okay, totally fair. So let's take that one layer deeper. But what is it really? IBC is utilizing a very specific financial instrument. And you can do it with a lot of things, but there's one very particular way of doing it best. Utilizing a specific financial instrument to take over the banking function at the you and me level.
Mhm.
Okay. So the financial instrument specifically is dividend paying whole life insurance,
Okay.
which folks are like, wait, whole life insurance? I was taught my whole life that whole life insurance is a bad thing. And don't ever put your money in whole life insurance. And you should invest in term or buy term and invest the difference and kind of all this noise and chaos that's out there. What's really special about dividend paying whole life insurance, and I'm emphasizing the dividend portion there because
Yeah.
it has to be from a participating life insurance company. In other words, a company in which the policy owners, I'm sorry, the policy holders are the owners of the company. Okay, that's a really key component to again, that particular financial instrument that we're talking about.
Okay.
But dividend paying whole life insurance is a contract. right? It's not a financial instrument like you're buying shares of a company. It is a contract, that unilateral contract, in fact, that you own and control, that facilitates that banking function, which again, the accumulation of capital and the service of and using that capital in areas of your life that you would use it anyway.
Hmm.
So I'm describing it that way because oftentimes, you'll see infinite banking on TikTok or the financial entertainers on YouTube where they talk about, you know, they really emphasize the leverage part of infinite banking, or they kind of talk about it as this trick, this gimmick, this tax loophole, this way of, kind of circumventing the financial system. And from my perspective, in reality, it's about building a sort of this financial foundation for you to go do the stuff in your life you're going to do anyway.
Hmm.
One of the really powerful things that Nelson illustrates in his book, again, Becoming Your Own Banker. It's available from the Nelson Nash Institute. Go to infinitebanking.org. It's the best resource to get the book. You can get it off Amazon. The print is questionable. You may
Oh,
end up getting a version that it was misprinted. So I always push people to the infinitebanking.org
okay.
to get a copy of the book. Um, one of the really powerful things that Nelson illustrates in the book is that he highlights at the very beginning that the infinite banking concept is not about rates of return. It's not about an investment strategy. It is about how one finances the things in their life. It's trying to solve a very particular problem that is at the forefront of everyday life for most people in the United States and North America, even up into Canada, but is also kind of hidden from view.
Hmm.
Well, that sounds very mysterious, Wheatley. What do you mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is that Nelson actually did an analysis. And if you think about it, we pay interest on every single dollar that we spend, whether we're paying cash or we're borrowing from a bank, from a financial institution, because either we're paying interest to the financial institution or we're losing interest, the opportunity cost,
Mhm.
on what we could have made with our cash.
Yeah.
And so that is the problem that the infinite banking concept sets out to solve.
Hmm.
It's how do we solve for the financing in our life that we need for everyday things, whether it's our homes, our cars, education, medical expenses, you name it. Every single person in the country needs access to capital
Yeah.
and needs to accumulate capital in an intelligent way. And the infinite banking concept is a really powerful way of doing that, that allows you to accumulate capital, have ultimate control over it, and allows you to take advantage of uninterrupted compound growth on that capital.
I feel
So,
like we could talk about this for a long time.
yeah, I'm going to stop there because I
Yeah.
feel like I
Well,
said a lot.
I do have so many questions though.
Yeah, well,
I want to backtrack here and have you explain your definitions or differences between money and capital.
yep.
And then, well, yeah, let's see where that goes.
Okay. Yeah. So, I won't get into I will tell on myself. But I won't get into too much of the technical, the economic definition. Okay. Because I'm going to leave that to folks who are way smarter than me.
Okay.
Um, and I happy to point to some resources in order to do that. The infinite banking concept, what I will say on that fact is that the infinite banking concept that Nelson Nash was trying to teach and kind of disseminate throughout the country, or the continent, if you really want to, is rooted in Austrian economics. Okay,
Okay.
so the definition of capital and money, and looking at the way in which money is created in the United States, as an example, through the fractional reserve banking system, is rooted in the Austrian perspective. Okay,
Okay.
so if you're really interested in kind of going down that rabbit hole, I would suggest looking at the Mises Institute as an example and a phenomenal resource. And then, there are, again, a ton of books and such that you can read, but Nelson was a forester, an expert in life insurance, and devoted student of Austrian economics. That's
Okay.
where like kind of the principles, and a devout Christian. So all those things, all those kind of four things really combined to make him who he was and what he was trying to teach others. So the simplest way that I think about the difference between capital and money is again kind of coming down to that. Well, money is just a medium of exchange, right? And that's part of the reason why, when you're looking at a concept like inflation, for example. So the expansion of the money supply.
Mm.
Um, the dollars are what we're using to trade, but capital is the resource that we're using to create value. In other words, capital can be everything from um, production equipment to raw resources to
Okay.
labor to so um, it is kind of the structure of what ultimately provides value into the economy.
Okay.
That's kind of the simplest way. I know it's still a little unclear, but that's the simplest
Nice.
way I can think of to describe it. Whereas money is kind of what we use um, to kind of it's one layer away from truly bartering,
Mhm.
right? In the old days, we'd say, all right, well, Nathaniel, you have a cow and I have a table that I just built. You want a table and I want a cow. So we're going to exchange one for another. And it was that barter system. Well, and as our economy became more and more complex, it became much more difficult to say, well, you have a cow and I have a table, but I actually want a tractor.
Right.
And this person over here has the tractor and you have the cow and I have the table. How do we facilitate the exchange between the three of us?
Yeah.
And how do we value all of those things? I can't take half a cow, right? If my table is only worth half that cow. So not to go down too far down the rabbit hole of like the creation of money, but that's really what it is. It's sort of this division, this assignment of value, whether it be labor value or time value, or so many worth so many cows, or so much division of a cow, as separate from the capital itself, which
Right.
is the resources that can provide that value.
Yeah.
Again, could be the cow, it could be production equipment, it could be the natural resources. There are any number of ways of defining that capital. And so the reason that I separate that concept, that idea of accumulating capital versus accumulating money, is because the money's value is always going to change, especially again with the way that our financial system creates money out of thin air, like
Yeah.
literally, like a
Yeah.
couple of keystrokes and boop, we got more of it, versus inherent value that may change, that the money may change relative to the value of the capital, but the capital is sort of more constant. It persists, I guess,
It
over time a
still
little bit.
is, you need a website created and I know how to create a website.
Sure. Yeah, that's another way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it is persistent value over time.
Yeah.
And so the capital is the thing that we want to accumulate because we can use the money to exchange the value of that capital for other things.
Mm. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. We're gonna have to.
Sorry, we went way
Yeah.
down the rabbit hole there,
No, I
but
like it. Like I said, I would keep going on this, but I think in sense of trying to keep this to 30 or 40 minutes, we should
yep.
probably stop here. Hold on,
Yeah.
let me turn this off. Spam call here. Um, if somebody wanted to find out more about the infinite banking, it sounds like infinitebanking.org is kind of the place to start, in your
Is a
opinion.
great first round.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to just come talk to you about it,
Hmm.
what's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you? Or not just infinite banking, but talking about, lending on a deal,
Yep.
connecting with you for that stuff as well. What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, if you're interested in just getting in contact with me, either Facebook, if you're in the Gator community, or in Sub 2, you should be able to find me, Christopher Wheatley. You can also email me, cwheatley@bridgewarren.com. You can check out my website, bridgewarren.com. You'll see a lot of information there about Gator lending, about hard money loans, so kind of the Alpha Gator program.
Okay.
There's a contact form there that you can use. Or you can also find me on Instagram. I'm not an active user in terms of like posting stuff, but I do have an account, and I'm vamping here while I try to find
Find it.
like what
I'll
my actual.
I'll link it in the description to make it easy on
Sweet.
friends.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much. Yeah,
yeah.
we'll do that.
I'll do the
Um,
same for your website and your Facebook page and your email address as well.
Perfect.
Just
That's
to make
great.
it easy. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you're listening and you want to connect with Chris, just check the link in the description and click on any of those and it'll lead you right to him.
Yeah.
Hopefully, as long as I'm doing like
I promise I
yeah.
won't talk your ear off about infinite
Yeah.
banking like I just did,
Yeah.
unless you ask me
Yeah.
about it. And
Yeah.
then
And I
all
did,
bets
to be
are
fair.
off.
Yeah, to be fair. I do have a couple a little bit more get you thinking kind of questions, and
Sure.
we'll see where those go. If
Okay.
you could have dinner with anybody in history, who would it be
Yep.
and what would you want to talk about? I gotta guess it's gonna be Nelson Nash. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
would love to. I
Yeah.
did not have the opportunity to meet Nelson before he passed, so that would be cool. But oftentimes when I'm asked that question, I go really far back to Leonardo da Vinci,
Oh, okay.
because he was such a polymath, right? He had so many different abilities, from his artistic approach,
Mhm.
and so he had a creative approach, and he also had this very technical and scientific
Right.
mind.
Yeah.
And I would just love to connect with someone that brilliant, not only to try to get at his way of thinking about the world, but also a perspective from that long ago, well before the development of technology where we are today,
Mm.
to try to uncover his way of thinking about the world and how he approached problems, and you know, where how he imagined things like the helicopter. I mean, he had ideas for the helicopter well before we understood aerodynamics and
Right.
lift
Yeah.
and buoyancy and like all of these things that necessitated the development of aircraft.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'd be Da Vinci.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one for all the reasons that you said, because he did everything from painting to, like you're saying, build these design these things that were 300 years ahead of its time, essentially. And
Yep.
you're right, he was like 1600s, I think. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and even stuff like, so a lot of his writing is backwards.
Oh.
And it's because, so it's he just solved an interesting problem, right? It was back with like quill and ink essentially,
Mhm.
and he was left-handed. And so when he wrote, he found that he was smearing the things that he was trying to write. So he just taught himself to write
Yeah.
mirrored, so that it would solve that problem, which
Yeah.
is, other people might have found a workaround, decided to change the way that they wrote, so they didn't. But he just decided to, attack the problem and
Yeah.
come up with an incredibly novel solution to
It's so
that
crazy. Yeah.
particular
Like
barrier,
just
right?
thinking about doing that right now, I'm like, how would you know where to start? But
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Um, another question I have for you here is, what's your biggest life lesson? And I know that you probably have a handful of these
Hmm.
at the moment. Like, what's the biggest thing that you've learned so far? Like one big thing that you've learned so far. How did you learn it? Like, what were your
Hmm.
takeaways from it?
Yeah. I would say the biggest life lesson that I've learned, let's say in the last 5 years, we'll just use that time period. Because I think that in life, we, or my experience has been that there are chapters and seasons of
Hmm.
life, and we tend to get information, lessons revealed to us sort of in these chunks. And I would say in the last 5 years, what has come up for me a lot is the idea of being easy with myself and living in gratitude. and that those two things combined are incredibly powerful. Um, and that's not to say that there is not room for, and that those two things specifically facilitate growth as opposed to trying to force it.
Right. Yeah.
I think early in my life, there were a lot of like efforts to overcome, to push through, to sort of brute force my way into the things that I wanted for myself and for my life. And there have been a number of things that have happened over the last 5 years that have provided an opportunity for just gratitude for what I have, gratitude for where I am, and grace and patience for myself.
Yeah.
So I think those things would
I
be
love
probably
that.
the biggest life lessons I've learned
Yeah.
recently.
And it's not always big things that you need to be grateful for. Um, I find myself, and we do a little family thing at dinner every night. We, 3 to 5 things from the day that you're grateful for. And, the 3-year-old, he's like, food, I'm always grateful for food. Or like he gets to watch Cars or, a show
Yeah,
like that. But yeah, sometimes I, man, I learned a hard lesson today by I didn't check the plumbing or whatever in the house,
right.
and it's going to be a big bill. And this is a
Yep.
lesson that I learned. I'm grateful for having learned this lesson now and it not being a bigger bill down the road. I'm just grateful for my kid sitting here that's grateful for his food. I'm
Yeah.
grateful for getting out of a comfy warm bed in the morning and being able to step out into a heated house when it's 26 degrees outside.
Yeah,
All the
exactly.
things. But yeah,
Yeah,
I love it. Lead with gratitude, and a lot of great things follow for sure.
absolutely.
Um, so I have a book, Becoming Your Own Banker.
Yep.
Are there any other books, podcasts, documentaries that you might recommend for somebody, an entrepreneur, engineer, getting into
Hmm.
a kind of a lending mindset, anything like that have kind of touched you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, gosh, it really depends on the topic.
Hmm.
Since we've been talking a lot about infinite banking, I will throw out a few of those.
Okay.
So, Cash Flow Legends is a really good one. That's a new one. I got to shout out Brandon Goswick and Nate Dean, um, uh, and Brock Fortner, three guys that are on that podcast. Another couple of my favorites in that space are Banking with Life, Life Success Legacy, and Strategic Whole Life. So those
Okay.
are a few great podcasts, really rooted in Nelson's original work. If you're into like SMB acquisition, I know that's like a topic that Pace has been talking about a lot, especially in the sub two community.
Yeah.
Acquisitions Anonymous is a really great podcast
Okay.
that you can check out. Buy Then Build, phenomenal book by Walker Deibel. If you're interested in kind of the psychology of personal development or trying to understand like how you fit in your entrepreneurial space, I would highly recommend two authors, and I'll mention a couple of their books. Um, One is Patrick Lencioni. So if anyone's familiar out there with like with EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating
Oh
System,
no.
he wrote a phenomenal book called The Six Types of Working Genius. And it's a really great way of looking at your own personal strengths, what gives you energy, and how to build a team. But Lencioni's work generally is really, really good. And then the other author I would recommend is Ari Meisel. Ari Meisel, and he wrote a couple of
ARI.
ARI. Yep.
Okay.
And he is all about entrepreneurs and optimization. So Ari wrote a couple of books, one of which is The Art of Less Doing.
Okay.
And he also wrote a book called On Productivity. And probably the book he's most famous for is called The Replaceable Founder.
Okay.
Those are three really, really good books.
Yeah, how the heck do you find time to read and listen to these podcasts?
Boredom is death, brother. I tell you. Fill the day.
Replaceable, what was the last one? Sorry,
The
replaceable
Replaceable Founder.
founder. That's right. Okay.
Yep.
Yep. Well, I appreciate that. That's a lot to go on here, and I now have plenty of Christmas books to ask for. for next year as
Exactly.
well. Yeah,
Yep. Good.
because my list is stacking up. Oh, I appreciate you being here, man. This went long. Not surprised by it. We had a lot to talk about. Um, we'll see. Maybe I'll have you on in 6 months and we can talk about the deals that you're
Sure.
doing there too.
Hopefully we'll have deals to talk about aside
Yeah.
from just,
I
I'm
think
still working on it,
you're
man.
doing, that's the one takeaway that comes up time and time again from these,
Mhm.
and when I'm talking to people that are doing things, is just taking action every single day, like you're doing, meeting people, talking about what talking about what you're passionate about, talking about what you're trying to accomplish, and you're just going to start attracting it, and you're doing it. Um, so just keep out there doing it, and 6 months from now, I can't guarantee anything, obviously, but
Sure.
you know, you're gonna be there, and
Well,
keep keeping the boredom at bay.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, absolutely. Well,
yeah,
Nathaniel, I really appreciate you having me on, man. This was fun, and thank you for the encouragement and for what you're doing in our community. Really
yeah, man. I
appreciate it.
appreciate you. Have a good one.
You too.